Overview. In this lesson, you will learn about present and past tenses, including the simple present, present continuous, present perfect continuous, simple past, past continuous, past perfect continuous tenses in written and spoken language. We will begin with present tense. The present tense refers to the form that verbs take when we talk of an action that takes place in the present time. In present tense, we use only auxiliary come verbs that apply to now. The auxiliary come verbs are is, am, are, has, have. For example,
I am sick.
or
I am not sick.
she is angry,
Or
she is not angry.
we are playing.
Or
We are not playing.
I have a bicycle,
Or
I have no bicycle,
or
I haven't a bicycle. In the examples that you just saw, the auxiliary come verbs were used in either an affirmative way, which is the positive way, or in a negative way, where the word no or nt come after the verb. Now let us look at some examples in question and answer form to understand the use of auxiliary come verbs in present tense. Where are you?
I am at home.
Are you angry?
No, I am not angry.
Where are Ramesh and Anand?
Ramesh and Anand are in Delhi.
Has Ramesh any money in his pocket?
Yes, Ramesh has some money in his pocket.
Have you a fear of snakes?
No, I haven't a fear of snakes.
Or
I have no fear of snakes.
we will now look at the simple present tense. The simple present tense is used for these reasons: to state a thing that happens regularly. For example,
I reach office at 9 every morning.
the simple present tense is also used to talk about permanent situations. For example,
My brother lives in Australia.
it is also used to state a fact or theory. For example,
The Taj Mahal is in Agra, India.
it is also used to talk about a pattern of habits. For example,
I eat fruits for breakfast.
if we look at the sentences carefully, we will notice that the structure of the verbs is like this. To indicate a positive action, we use the base verb or the verb plus an S. For example,
She lives in the next building.
the structure is like this. To indicate a negative action, we use do or does not plus a verb. For example,
She does not live in the same building as I.
to indicate a question, we use do or does with the subject plus a verb. For example,
Does he live in the same building as you?
now let's understand the present continuous tense. The present continuous tense relates to an action that is happening now. It describes an action that talks about the present moment, an action that has begun but not finished, and a changing situation. It also talks about an action that is temporary. Here we use words like now, at the moment, at present, or just, which either follow the verb immediately or are placed after the object. For example,
I am eating my lunch.
in this sentence, the words am eating tell us what we are doing now. It is understood that the speaker is eating her lunch now, that is, at the time of speaking these words. In the same way, when we listen to this next sentence,
I am working on a project.
we know that the speaker is currently working on a project. Think of all the characteristics of the present continuous tense that you have learned when reading the rest of these sentences.
Are you not going to the function? Is she not returning to India? Am I looking tired?
You may have realized that in the present continuous tense, the structure of the verbs is as follows. To indicate a positive action, we use am or is or are plus the verb plus ing. For example,
I am going.
to indicate a negative action, we use am not, is not, or are not plus the verb. For example,
I am not going.
to indicate a question, we use am, is, or are plus the verb plus ing. For example,
am I going?
let's look at the present perfect tense. The present perfect tense is basically a combination of the present and the past tenses. Look at these sentences.
I have completed my homework.
If we look at the verb have, we think it is the present tense. However, the word completed indicates something that is in the past. Similarly, in this next sentence, the verb has is in the present tense, while gone indicates something that occurred in the past.
She has gone to Hyderabad. Ratan has written the letter. The train has arrived on time.
It is important to note that the auxiliary and the verb were placed together while forming sentences. In the sentences we just read, have went with completed. Has went with gone. Has was placed with written, and has was used with reached. It is important that we use the correct form of the verb in the past tense. Let's take a closer look at the verbs that were used in these sentences and write them in their present tense forms. Under the present tense form, we say have completed, while in the present tense form, we use the verb complete. The present perfect tense form for the verb go is has gone. The present perfect tense form for the verb write is has written. And the present perfect tense form for the verb arrive is has arrived. Now let us look at some verbs that are unusual. Let's take the word go. Putting it in the present tense form, we say
We go to work.
if we were to change this sentence to the past tense, we would say
We went to work.
therefore, we can say that the actual past tense form of the verb go is went or gone, and in the same way the verb write becomes wrote or written in the past tense. So, what definition can we give to the words gone and written? Such words are called past participles, which is another form of the verb. Thus, we can say a verb has a present form, a past form, and also a past participle form. It is therefore necessary to learn all the three forms of the verb. Verbs like complete, shift, and reach are examples of those whose past form and past participle forms remain the same. The spelling also does not require much effort as the past tense and past participle is formed by adding ed, d, or ied to the present tense form. A few verbs have a distinct past participle form. Let's look at some of these. Eat. The distinct past participle form of eat is eaten, while the past form is ate. Bite. The distinct past participle form of bite is bitten. The past form of bite is bit. Shake. The distinct past participle form of shake is shaken, while the past form is shook. There are many such verbs in the English language where the spelling and pronunciation differ in all three forms. They are called irregular verbs. You learnt about irregular verbs in lesson 2. Do remember to go through the list regularly. The more you read, the more familiar you will get with the words, and then you will start becoming aware of them as you listen and speak the English language. There are many irregular verbs in the English language, and you will need to go through them and remember them well. There are also some verbs which have the same form whether they are in the present or past tenses or past participle. For example, read, shed, spread, put, and cut. These are just some of such verbs. Remember to study them carefully so that you can begin to use them correctly. Let us now go back to some of the examples given earlier and form questions.
Have you completed your homework?
Has she gone to Hyderabad?
Has Ratan written the letter?
Has the train arrived on time? Now, in case the answers are to be given in the negative, the auxiliary have and has will be followed by not, or the auxiliaries will be written as haven't or hasn't. Also, the past participle will not immediately follow the auxiliary. Note how these questions are answered in the negative.
No, I have not completed my homework.
No, she has not gone to Hyderabad.
No, Ratan has not written the letter.
No, the train has not arrived on time. Thus, we can see that the present perfect tense tells about an action completed very recently, including something that has just been completed a few minutes earlier. For example,
I have finished my lunch.
the present perfect tense also tells about a completed action where we don't know when it happened. For example, Sudha has gone to Bareilly.
Madhav has completed his studies.
We will now study the present perfect continuous tense. The present perfect continuous tense is basically a combination of the past tense and the present continuous tense. How does this work? Let's look at some examples to understand this.
Hansa has been learning music.
Notice how the verb has makes us think that the sentence is in present tense. Now, looking at the auxiliary been, we understand that it is a perfect tense. The ing in the word learning indicates the present tense that is continuing or still going on. This is why we say that the present perfect continuous tense is a combination of the past tense and the present continuous tense. Read these sentences now and analyze each of the verbs and understand this concept of present perfect continuous tense.
Has Hansa been learning music?
Hansa has not or hasn't been learning music.
I have been cooking dinner.
Rajesh and Vinod have been studying for their examinations. When we look closely at the structure of the sentences which are not questions, we find that the auxiliaries has been and have been are used just before the present form of the verb whose basic form is changed by adding ing. The sentences show us that the present perfect continuous tense applies to actions which started in the past and which are continuing in the present, and those which were completed recently. Let us now study the past tense. Just as present tense talks of something that is happening now, the past tense gives information about something that has already taken place, that is, in the time relating to the past. The verb forms in past tense are was, were, and had. For example,
Hema was sick last month.
the twins were happy.
The family had a problem last year.
The same examples, if written in a negative form, would be as this.
Hema was not or wasn't sick last month.
The twins were not or weren't happy.
The family had no problem or hadn't any last year.
When the word never is used to give a negative answer, the tone becomes strong or emphatic. Let us rewrite the examples in emphatic mode.
Hema was never sick last month.
The twins were never happy.
The family never had a problem last year.
We will now study the past simple tense or simple past tense. We use past simple tense when we talk of an action or an activity completed in the past. The rules for simple past tense are that when the statement is in the affirmative, we use the verb plus an ed. For example,
I reached at night.
when the statement is in the negative, we use did not plus the base verb. For example,
I did not eat food.
when the statement is an interrogative or an asking statement, we use did, the subject, plus the verb. For example,
Did you sleep well?
next we will work a little bit with the past form of verbs. All verbs will not acquire the past form merely by adding an ed at the end. There are many verbs that are different in form in the simple past tense. You will once again need to refer to the list of irregular verbs in lesson 2. Here are some to help you remember what we are talking about. In the present form, we use write, while in the past form, we use wrote. We use ride in the present form and rode in the past form. Sleep is in the present form, while slept is in the past form. Throw is in the present form, while threw is in the past form. The verb leave is in present form and it changes to left in the past form. There are many such examples in your booklet. You should go through all of them at the end of this video session. Remember, it will be of great help if you do a lot of reading of stories or passages, the English newspapers and magazines in order to familiarize yourself with past forms of such verbs so you may get comfortable using them correctly. Tenses in conversation, a role-playing activity. In your booklet, there is a small conversation between a father and son using the various forms of the past tense we have learnt until now. Please take a few minutes to practice this conversation with a partner. You should be careful of your pronunciation and expression while doing this role-play activity. We will now study the past continuous tense. The past continuous tense means that the activity or action was going on at a time in the past. In this picture, the lady is talking about a time in the past. which was last night. She saw that the baby was doing something. What was the baby doing? Sucking a spoon. The baby was in the middle of an action in the past. Therefore, she used the words was sucking when referring to the action in past continuous tense. We will look at some rules for the formation of verbs in the past continuous tense. When the statement is in the affirmative, we use a was or were plus the verb plus ing. For example,
I was eating.
they were eating ice cream. When the statement is a negative statement, we use was not or were not plus the verb plus ing. For example,
She was not eating.
they were not eating. When we ask a question, or in other words, when the statement is an interrogative statement, we use was or were. Then we place the subject followed by the verb plus ing. For example,
Was she eating?
were they eating? Let us now look at some more examples of the structure of sentences in the past continuous tense.
Rajesh was running very fast.
The boys were working hard for their exams.
Where was Radha teaching?
Wasn't Jamal playing with his friends? Now we will look at the past perfect tense. The past perfect tense basically relates to an action that started and was also completed in the past. For example,
Ratan had written the letter.
it also relates to two actions that occurred in the past. In that case, the one will be earlier than the other. For example,
By the time we discovered the theft, the criminal had escaped.
we use the past perfect tense in indirect speech, also known as reported speech, where we report what someone had already said. The words that were spoken by the someone are in the present perfect tense form. For example,
Akshay said that he hasn't always disliked cold weather.
the past perfect tense is also used in a situation where we seek a confirmation of an action of the past. This goes along with the tag along questions as you learned in lesson 2. For example,
The children had watched a movie, hadn't they?
the next tense we will learn about is the past perfect continuous tense. The past perfect continuous tense is very similar to the past perfect tense, except that there is more importance given to the continuous aspect of the action. The construction of the sentence should be like this. The subject is followed by the auxiliary had been, either in positive or negative form, and the verb form is in the simple present tense plus ing. Let's look at some more examples to really understand this.
She had been studying the whole afternoon, so she decided to go for a movie in the evening.
Ram had been working very hard in his new job, yet he got fired.
Sita had been suffering from health problems for a long time.
Margaret hadn't been keeping well for the whole year before she passed away.
Usha had been cooking the whole afternoon, hadn't she?
Tenses in conversation. Another role-playing activity. In your booklet, there is another small conversation. This time it is between two friends. The two friends are discussing the wedding of their friend Usha. Please take a few minutes to practice this conversation with a partner. Once again, pay attention to your pronunciation and expression while doing this role play activity. We shall now review what you have learned. In this lesson, you have learned that tense refers to the time an action takes place, that is, in the present, past, or future. You have learned that there are three variations of the present and past tenses, that is, the simple, continuous, or perfect tenses. The simple form of a tense refers to the commonly used form of the verb for the time the action takes place. The continuous form of a tense denotes that the action continues or continued for a while. And the perfect form of a tense tells us that the action was completed during the time that is indicated by the tense. You may now use this time to read the reference reading material that goes with this lesson. Thank you.